One of the elements of Home Cinema 2.0 here is upgrading my amplifiers. Let's talk about it. So looking at new amps is actually the thing that kind of started the slippery slope of deciding to overhaul my whole space and make a version 2 essentially of the home theater project that we've done, or that we did 3.5 years ago. For the longest time since I've had separates, I've been running amps by Emotiva. Earlier on I had multiple of their Gen 1 amps, and then along the way decided to upgrade to this XPA11 Gen 3 that I'm using to drive all 11 speakers in my room right now. I sold the 3 individual earlier generation amps that I had and moved them over to the 3. I was kind of drawn to the single box, getting everything consolidated into one, the new generation architecture and so on. But the reality is that really wasn't an upgrade. I kind of did that one. I didn't really think it through. I would have been better off just keeping the original earlier generation amps that I had. More power, different class of power, different type of power delivery, and so on. And so the XPA11 has been fine. I think it's a little underpowered for a couple of my channels, but I haven't really been happy. I think it has a little bit higher of a noise floor. If you go to places like Audio Science Review and such, you'll see that the Emotiva amps, the Gen 3s, have higher distortion levels and that kind of stuff. And what I'm really finding ultimately is that I don't think it's a really good match for my speakers. So I spent a pretty good portion of my room budget originally on my speakers, choosing the Focal Electras up front, the big towers in the center, and then going with the Aria 906s for all the surround and the height positions in the room as well. And after doing a lot of research, it's fairly clear that the type of power delivery, the type of amplification that a Focal speaker needs, particularly the Electras and the Beryllium Tweeters and so on, isn't really what Emotiva provides, and it's not really a match that a lot of people prefer compared to other options. Particularly for the higher end Focal materials and so on, I found that there's a general preference and often a general recommendation for a warmer sounding amp. And a lot of people buy tubes, they buy Class A amps and that sort of thing. So after a bunch of research, I discovered or seriously considered Parasound in the Halo series of amps. Great pedigree product, Class A/AB architecture, which means that the Parasound Halo amps actually run a certain amount of power, a decent amount of power, as pure Class A, and then switch over to AB for the remainder of the power delivery when it's needed, giving a different kind of a house sound, a different kind of a power delivery that hopefully will make a different kind of a sound and a much better match, both in terms of dynamics and in terms of being a better quality match for the money that I put into the speakers that I have. So again, after all that research, pretty clearly determined that for the money and for the match, Parasound was pretty much the best solid state option to go with. So I've actually already pulled the trigger on this. The Emotiva is still in the rack here as I record this, but there's a couple of big boxes on the other side of that door. And what I purchased was essentially an A31 to drive the front 3 array, the left, center, and the right, and I purchased 2 A52 pluses. And actually what I'm going to do is that one of the A52 pluses is going to drive the left surround and the rear left surround, and it'll drive the left front height and the left rear height, basically making that the left side amplifier. And the second A52 plus is going to drive the right sides. Well, if you do the math, you might calculate there's 2 extra channels of amplification. Now, in my room, the way that I have things laid out, the space that I have available, 1 row of seating, I really don't see myself adding extra speakers. I don't need them. There's really not a facility in my room to even consider wides. There's really no reason to do 2 sets of side surrounds. And even with the way the ceiling is, with the soffit in the back and so on, there's no reason to add extra speakers overhead either, particularly after I pull the speaker upgrade that I'm going to be talking about in a future video. So that room is pretty much set the way it is. However, if you recall from some of my last videos, you'll know that I've talked about having a 2.2 audio setup in the living room. And one of the things that I've been tinkering around with my system is driving both zones, the theater main zone and the living room zone 2, off of a single preamplifier here in the rack. And I've already made some gear changes and switches and such to do that. And I put this triad amplifier in, this PAMP1 Class D 200 watt into 4 ohms to drive those two speakers. However, since I have the 2 extra channels sitting on those A52s, I'm going to actually take the triad amp out that I just put in. Dan DiCarlo at Audio Vision, where I sourced this from, and also sourced the Parasounds from, is nice enough, graciously enough, will be taking that back. And I'll go ahead and I'll just use the other 2 amplifier channels off the Parasounds. So not only will I benefit from having the amplification of the Parasounds in the theater, not only will I have the benefit of using the higher quality preamp and its soon-to-be replacement in the theater, but I'll be using the same kind of quality equipment to also drive the living room off of the same stuff that I was going to buy anyway. And that's where the optimization and the efficiency of doing the Zone 2 stuff is just awesome. So the A52 is a great match for the surround speakers, the height speakers, and the speakers in the living room, because I'm usually not driving them too loud or too high. But you might ask, well, why only an A31 if you have these big Electra 1038 towers? And so again, I'll get into what's happening with the speakers soon, but suffice it to say the speaker array that's in that room is not long for that room. And I'm going to make some other changes that essentially make the A31 and the combination of the 2 A52s a perfect match. If I had stuck with the towers, then I was looking for something to do a little more powerful, a little more delivery to them, something like the JC5 perhaps. But again, with the speaker changes, it rendered that idea moot, and the 31 is going to be perfect for what I have planned for the speakers. So I'm really excited for this change. I think this was a needed step up in an area with regards to quality and performance to maintain parity with the rest of the system. I don't want to knock Emotiva. I think they make really great stuff, and I think they do it at some incredible price points. And so Emotiva is a exceptional value. And when I say value, I don't mean that to be insulting in any way, because it's great stuff at great prices, sold direct and all of that sort of thing. However, I put more into my system than I think at least an XPA 11, and cramming all of that stuff into one chassis really wants to ask for. So by spreading the amplification out a little bit, bringing it up to a different brand, and matching, I think, better the virtues and the capabilities of the speakers that I have with the virtues and the capabilities of a better parity amplifier, I'm really interested to see how that turns out. So I'll be putting the A31 in, leaving the Emotiva, and actually doing at least a little bit of an AB with the front 3, and then the Emotiva will be coming out. I'll look to sell that, and I'll get all of the rest of the amplification installed here. I've already made room in the rack. They're going to go down on the bottom on the home theater side under my processor, and I think those are going to stay in here for a very long time, particularly if they deliver on everything that I've read and learned about Parasound build quality and performance and capability and sonic characteristics and all of that. So this is the one area where I'm actually putting in a bunch of money relative to the upgrades. A lot of the other things that I'm doing in this space, I'll be selling some things and buying some things and making at least a relatively even wash, but I am spending some money to bring the level of amplification in the system up to a new level. And again, I'm very intrigued to listen to the sound profile that I hear in the room, in the space, with regards to noise floor and such off of the Parasounds, and how they drive these focals with the beryllium tweeters. What are you using to drive your theater? Let me know how you feel about amplification in the comments. If you have any questions as well, let me know. And again, shout out for Dan DiCarlo at Audio Vision, sourcing the Parasounds for the new installation. I will be following up on all of these 2.0 planning videos as the gear comes in with unboxings. So we'll unbox the A31, we'll unbox one of the A52s, talk all about each of those amplifiers specifically, and then I said get them installed, and there'll be a whole lot to say about them in the weeks ahead on the channel. So stay tuned, please come back. So much planned for this home theater 2.0 project. It's going to be a brand new room, completely overhauled, integrated, brought up to parity, and performing in a way for home theater that's just going to be another echelon above what I was able to achieve with the room when I originally put together what I have about 4 years ago. So please like and subscribe for more content, and thanks for watching.